Liana tightly hugged Darian, afraid her father-in-law would run away. She pressed Darian's head tightly against her chest. This made him unable to bear it, causing everything from emotions to spirit to become more intense, everything to become deeper. Although for Darian, this was his daughter-in-law, at this moment he had completely forgotten. After a while, he finally came to his senses, but then the wave of pleasure swept away his moral thoughts. Liana proactively moaned loudly, even she was surprised, and she also blushed, not for any particular reason, but because of the feeling she had never experienced with her husband, now having it with her father-in-law. Hello dear listeners, welcome to our channel. Today, we will tell you an emotional and captivating story. The story is about Mr. Darian, an exemplary father-in-law, and his daughter-in-law named Liana, whom he loved as his own daughter. In a moment of weakness, the once pure relationship between the two crossed the line, causing a disruption not only to moral values, but also shaking the family foundation. The conflicts, suffering, and torment between the father, son, and daughter-in-law pushed them into difficult choices, ultimately forcing them to learn how to confront the past, heal the wounds, and find happiness in familial love and forgiveness. To find out more details about how the story will unfold and how it will end, please watch the video now to explore this surprising and profound tale. The sound of shattering glass came from the living room, and Liana looked at the broken glass in the corner of the living room, her heart breaking. She picked up the white wine on the table and poured it into her mouth until it was full. The sumptuous dishes on the dining table were prepared by her with great time and effort for the special occasion, their wedding anniversary. Today, she started planning half a month ago, and even her father-in-law made an excuse to go out to give the couple some time together. But what she received was that her husband was on a business trip in the south and couldn't return in time. Since getting married, her husband, Kieran, has been busy with his career, often away from home, and when he does come back, it's usually around midnight. Even on their wedding anniversary like today, he couldn't come home to her. She is also an ordinary woman. She also needs love. Liana feels like a secluded widow waiting for her husband to return every day. Thinking of this, her heart was completely desolate. Looking back at the time when she had just graduated from university, she was so joyful. Beautiful, with model-like measurements and an attractive price, she quickly became the center of attention at her company and school, even becoming the target of pursuit for a group of men. Kieran is one of them, meaning he is now her husband. She began to wonder if she had made a mistake marrying Kieran. Thinking back on why she chose Kieran among the many who pursued her. In the end, she thought that perhaps it was because of Kieran's father, Mr. Darian, who was a university professor. Because Kieran's mother passed away early due to illness, Kieran was raised solely by his father, Professor Darian. Darian's appearance gives the person in front of him a warm, gentle feeling, and his kind, caring, and a humorous personality makes Liana fond of him. That also made her mistakenly think that Kieran was like his father. After dating for less than half a year, she and he moved towards marriage. Now she begins to regret why she was once so infatuated with love. When she held the wine glass in her hand and took a sip, she realized she had drained the glass without even noticing. She, still under the influence, walked to the liquor cabinet and took another bottle. After opening the cap, she poured it into her mouth instead of a glass. "Child, why are you drinking like that?" Darian walked around the city alone until after 11 o'clock, and upon returning, he saw his daughter-in-law drunk and lying on the ground. He thought that perhaps his son had missed the appointment. Mr. Darian stepped beside her and snatched the glass of wine from her hand. "Let Dad take you to your room to rest. Don't drink anymore." "I don't want to. I still want to drink." "Dad, drink with me." When Darian helped Liana into the room to rest, Liana kept shouting, demanding more alcohol. "Don't drink anymore. Let Dad take you to the room to rest." "I don't want to. I want to drink alcohol." After Darian helped his daughter-in-law into the room and laid her on the bed, he sat beside her. Liana was completely drunk, and he shook his head helplessly. He has always relatively loved this beautiful daughter-in-law, considering her as his own daughter. He always asked his son to do the heavy chores around the house and often took the initiative to help with housework. This attentiveness makes Liana feel distressed whenever she encounters difficulties or any problems in life. She always thinks of her father-in-law. Her father-in-law always patiently listened to her confessions, never seeming annoyed, which made her admire and love him infinitely, as he always inquired with great care. After covering Liana with a blanket, Darian left the room and went to the living room. He picked up the bottle of wine from the floor and poured himself a glass. He wondered why Kieran didn't appreciate his wife like that. He thought perhaps he should find Kieran to talk. If not, one day Kieran will regret it. Before long, the liquor in the bottle was finished by him. He felt a bit dizzy. Since the eye incident, he rarely drinks alcohol. After tidying up the living room, he returned to his room to prepare for sleep. "Dad, come on, let's drink together." When Darian was lying on the bed preparing to rest, Liana, who was very drunk, came to his room and pulled Darian's hand to the living room. "Liana, you're really drunk. Don't drink anymore." Can we drink again another day?" "I don't want to. I'm not drunk. I just want to drink, okay? Dad is taking me to the room to rest." "I don't want to. I want to drink alcohol." "Liana, Kieran is not good. After he comes back, Dad will scold him, okay? Now, Dad will take you to your room to rest first." Hearing Darian's continuous advice, but at this moment, Liana couldn't hear anything. She was completely drunk, leaning against Darian. "Dad, why does Kieran treat me like this? Does he not love me, Dad? Why doesn't he treat me like Dad?" After finishing her words, Liana began to cry in Darian's arms. She leaned tightly against the only chest that could make her feel safe and warm. "Cry, cry to lighten your heart, my child." Receiving encouragement from her father-in-law, Liana's tears flowed like a flood. She cried louder and louder, hugging tighter and tighter, with a heart full of sorrow. Darian hugged Liana tightly, his hand continuously stroking her head. "Stop crying, my child." Seeing his daughter-in-law heartbroken and sobbing makes Darian feel as if his own daughter is being hurt. Hugging Liana tightly, holding her in his arms as if afraid the girl would be hurt. After crying her heart out, Liana slowly lifted her head. When she saw the gentle, warm face of her father-in-law looking at her with affectionate eyes, her heart was clouded. She felt that the man in his 50s before her was the man she truly desired. She thought of her father-in-law's gentleness towards her, his caring and attentive nature, and his humorous, witty personality, which were the qualities she desired in a husband. She couldn't help but close her eyes, pucker her lips, and raise her leg higher. Darian looked at his daughter-in-law's beautiful face, flushed from the wine, even more alluring, her red lips slightly parted, her expression as if to say, "Kiss me." His heart couldn't help but feel a slight tremor. This was the first time since his wife's passing that he felt a stir of emotions toward another woman. But in his mind, he thought she was his son's wife, his daughter-in-law. But the alcohol interrupted his thoughts, and the desire from deep within him quickly took over every cell in his body. He bowed his head and kissed Liana's thin red lips with reverence. Liana wrapped her arms around Darian's neck, enthusiastically responding to her father-in-law's kiss. She kept sucking on the tip of her father-in-law's tongue that he had put into her mouth. At this moment, they seemed to have forgotten their own identities and were left with nothing but pure male-female instincts. They only wanted to look at each other, to understand each other's love. What about moral ethics? What about the duties of husband and wife? What about the relationship between father-in-law and daughter-in-law, which have long been thrown out the window? Darian carried Liana to the bed. The two of them rolled around on the bed, kissing each other until finally Darian was on top of Liana. They seemed to be glued to each other, their tongues entwining. When Darian's lips left Liana's lips, Liana's tongue instinctively stuck out to chase after Darian's lips. After Darian saw it, he opened his mouth, and finally, the two of them kissed passionately, entwined with each other's tongues. Darian reached out and began to undress Liana's shirt and skirt, while Liana twisted her body to make it easier for Darian to take off her clothes. Today, Liana wore a seductive sheer outfit, originally meant to commemorate their wedding anniversary, but especially worn for the fans. But unexpectedly, the person she shared it with was her father-in-law. After Darian removed Liana's clothes, her snow-white body was left wearing only one more garment before reaching the inside, her slender, long thighs as white as snow leading straight down to her feet. Darian looked at that white skin and blushed. The full, soft, and creamy white body, with its exquisite curves, made him feel that Liana's body was as symmetrical as a statue, without a single flaw. He couldn't help but swallow, extending his hand. Finally, what was meant to happen did happen. They rolled around like two hungry tigers entwined, frantically pulling each other, caressing heads, stroking cheeks, and kissing lips. When Darian touched her more deeply, she involuntarily shivered. She closed her eyes to receive the rare tenderness. For her, this was indeed a rare tenderness, a gentleness and gentle actions that her husband, Kieran, had never shown before, not even on their wedding night. Kieran always insisted on understanding her in the middle of the night when she was sound asleep, and after a passionate encounter, he would quickly finish the task. For him, that was a sign of masculinity. But for her, she felt like a servant to his life, without any foreplay or affection, just there for her husband to relieve his discomfort. Although she had achieved pleasure from his wildness, it only lasted for a short time and then faded away. It couldn't satisfy her heart. It only left her feeling uncomfortable, as if she were hanging in the air. But now, the gentle feeling from her father-in-law's hot, fiery hands transferred to her, a feeling so overwhelming that she couldn't describe it. It erupted within her. Darian slipped his hand under Liana's clothes, hugging and caressing her, making her unable to bear it any longer. Liana tightly hugged Darian, fearing her father-in-law would run away, and pressed Darian's head firmly against her chest. This made him unable to bear it, causing everything from emotions to spirit to become more intense. Everything became deeper. Although for Darian this is a daughter-in-law, at this moment he has completely forgotten. After a while, he finally came to his senses, but the wave of pleasure swept away his moral thoughts. Liana actively moaned loudly, and even she herself felt astonished. At the same time, she also blushed, not for any particular reason, but because the feeling she had never experienced with her husband was now present with her father-in-law. It was truly something she couldn't fully describe or even imagine. Then finally, that moment of intimacy passed. The father-in-law lay in one corner, and she lay in another. Neither of them dared to look at each other, nor face the shyness, embarrassment, and moral degradation that were present and prominent. It developed like a rapidly advancing pestilence, making it impossible for the two of them to escape from it. They couldn't dare to forget, nor could they remember it in detail without it being a disaster. Would it ever happen again? Neither of them knew, and then suddenly there was a knock on the door from outside. It turned out Kieran had been trying to find a way to get home in time for his wife. Truly heartbreaking, it says heartbreak upon heartbreak, he returned home to create a surprise, but the one who was surprised was him. Just like the saying goes, 3 years of gathering firewood, 1 hour of burning. She had been a loyal wife her whole life without anyone knowing, suffering in silence and enduring her husband for so long without anyone noticing. But a moment of extreme pleasure shattered the beautiful image of a wife in Kieran's heart. Kieran witnessed everything. He hated his father, hated his wife for being so weak and unintentionally committing an act of betrayal against her husband, and that person was his father-in-law. He couldn't stop blaming his father, rushing in as if he wanted to hit those two people, but they still looked at him with pity and guilt. "What can I do now?" I can't hit my dad, and I definitely can't hit my wife. He exclaimed in frustration, "What did I do wrong?" Then finally, his wife revealed all his mistakes. He bit his lip and tears streamed down his face, while his father sat quietly in the corner, tears also streaming down his face. Until 3 o'clock the next morning, everything faded into oblivion inside that once warm home of three, now the coldest place where the three of them sat. The father went upstairs. Mr. Darien packed all his belongings into 2 old, worn black suitcases. He locked the door, carried the 2 old black suitcases down the stairs, and decided to leave this place, giving back life to his son and daughter-in-law. Regretting the moral decay, the daughter-in-law watched her father leave, tears streaming down her face for a father who was too good, not because of the recent satisfaction or any crazy thoughts. She wanted to hold on to her father but didn't dare, and her husband didn't want to either. It was Kieran who wanted Dad to leave, and he didn't want to lose his wife because of those mistakes. Although it is hard to accept, if we try to fix it, it should be manageable. He didn't want to see the family fall apart like that, but no one could say a word until Mr. Darien's figure gradually disappeared from the black 4-seater car driving away. Then, both husband and wife looked at each other, tears streaming down, and embraced each other while crying. Between them, there exists a feeling that is hard to understand. He loves his wife but doesn't understand her. The wife loves him but cannot fill in all the things the husband has not done. Then they hugged each other and cried in a sobbing grief that they had never thought they would experience in their lifetime. Then Kieran said to his wife, "Let's start over, okay?" She smiled because she never thought that after all her mistakes and the boredom she endured with her husband, things would be resolved like this. But she was very heartbroken because her father-in-law had left the house. Whether in her heart, her father-in-law occupies a more important position than her husband, she doesn't know. Then, because in her heart she also had feelings for him and truly wanted to open a chapter of happiness with him. Then the 2 of them lived happily together every day. He also changed a lot, and she embraced his feelings with passionate happiness. He has truly changed 380 degrees compared to before. But in her heart, there was still something lacking. It seemed that the image of her father-in-law was too grand due to all the wonderful things and even that passionate night, making it unforgettable for her. Then finally, 3 months passed, she became pregnant, and the child was born exactly 9 months and 10 days later. The child looked exactly like Kieran, and she was sure that the child was Kieran's. Looking at it, it resembles him, the boastful expression of the child lying still there. She wished her father-in-law were here. He would have doted on the grandchild just as he had always dreamed. She went home and whispered everything to her husband. The husband, also filled with sorrow and pain, searched everywhere for his father and finally found him. He lived in a city not far away, and they returned, gathering together to live beside each other, enjoying the wonderful things that heaven had bestowed upon them. At this time, Dad also reunited with an old flame, both of them having unfinished business. One lost a wife, the other lost a husband, and they came together. Dad didn't come back alone. He came back with someone else, and he also had his own family, living a complete and happy life. Liana and Kieran now also have a happy life with a little boy, forming a family of 4, and with the addition of a small member, they are a family of 5, happy in laughter. Old mistakes, though blameworthy, should be forgiven. Only when the past is closed can the future begin. Only by accepting and moving past the past can we rebuild the future. Even though it is known to be wrong, recognizing it and correcting it is still worth trusting and continuing to live for, and it is also worth encouraging and advising everyone not to do so. The events in the story are not only a lesson about moral boundaries, but also a reminder of the power of forgiveness and the significance of family. Although the past may be painful, when people know how to face and correct their mistakes, happiness can still be rebuilt. Thank you, dear listeners, for listening to the story. We hope it leaves you with profound reflections. If you find the story interesting and meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next captivating stories. And now, goodbye and see you again.